Millions of Brits taking weight loss jabs may need to stay on them for life if they don't want to put the weight back on. Well, let's talk about this with Carl Heneghan. He's a professor of evidence-based medicine at the University of Oxford and joins us once again to talk about this topic. Good afternoon to you, Carl.
Good afternoon, Julia.
Thank you so much for joining us. So we first spoke to you about the weight loss jabs when everyone was saying these are the miracle cure. They're going to save the NHS, save everyone from cancer, diabetes, heart disease, everything. Take the jabs, everyone loses weight. You were pointing out that even on the studies carried out by the pharmaceutical companies, they weren't quite as successful as everyone said in the first place. So you had some warnings about that. I've raised a lot of concerns about the side effects, because there isn't a miracle drug that doesn't have side effects. And now something I've been predicting for the last year appears, love to hear your thoughts on this, appears to be coming true, that actually they only work while you're taking them and then you put the weight back on. What do you make of these latest studies?
Yeah, so NICE said that it was 2 years. This latest analysis says by 1.4 years, you put the weight back on. Now, remember, this is in the randomized controlled trial, so the effects there are likely to be better than the real world.
Why is that?
Well, because in randomized controlled trials, you're tightly adhere, you've got all the clinical support, all the behavioral support, and all the weight management programs that you're supposed to have along.
Yeah, you're aware you're going to be weighed in, so you're kind of more studious about it.
Yeah, and it often the monitoring's more often. So look, like all weight loss programs, you lose weight when you're on them. You lose weight when you're on these drugs. The problem is, how do you keep it off and stabilize your weight beyond there? There's no doubt we've got a huge problem here, Julia. 1 in 3 people is now obese in the UK, and that's doubled since the 1990s. So we can remember an era in the 70s and 80s when we went to school and children and we were around and there were very few people.
Oh, I mean, well, I've got pictures of me. I mean, I always love my food, and you can see my rib cage.
Yeah. Now look at this. This is the huge problem that's being ignored. At the age of 10, 22%, about 1 in 5 children are obese. If you throw in the overweight, we're talking 1 in 3 children is now obese. This idea that the answer is you go on weight loss drugs for life is not what this study says. It says these short-term fixes don't work. And I have to emphasize the huge issue here with the adverse effects. The thing is that the MHRA, these are still experimental, we're still learning about them, has had 47,681 yellow cards. Of these, 7,000...
Explain what the yellow cards are.
These are reports where a patient, or particularly a doctor, has sent into the MHRA, the regulator, an issue with the drug. Somebody has had an adverse event and used specific. So it doesn't cover all of them. But of these, 7,703 are serious and 69 are with a fatal outcome.
Oh, wow.
So importantly, and the other thing is, remember, there are falsified medicines here. If you're buying this off the internet, you're possibly buying something that I have no idea what it is, and that's a bad idea. So you should only be doing this in a weight loss program. You should only be doing it with prescription, but it's getting out of hand now because we are seeing, I've no idea how many people are on this, but reports are 1.5 to 2 million people are somehow getting this through pharmacies, websites.
I know loads of people who are on the what I find fascinating. I know husband and wives where, one of them has lost, 3 stone really, really quickly. One of them has lost 3 pounds. And these drugs do behave differently for people. Tell us how they work, because they're actually, we often talk about, certain ones of the drugs, but actually they Manjaro and Wegovy, a lot of these drugs work slightly differently, but a lot of it is just about suppressing your appetite, so you actually just don't want to eat very much. Is that right?
And so what they do is they make people, in fact, in lots, about 1 in 10 people, they suppress your appetite by making you so nauseous and vomiting, you get diarrhea, that you can't tolerate the drug. So is in effect, it does what it does is by trying to say, oh, I'm too full to eat. But a lot of people do have side effects. And in doing so, one of the most serious is the gastrointestinal side effects like the pancreatitis. But what it doesn't do, which you alluded to when you said, it's now January, I'm trying to lose weight, it doesn't change your behavior. And behavior programs in this review, people put on weight when they came off the program less slowly. And this is about understanding calories in, calories out, trying to find those areas. For instance, unfortunately, alcohol is a huge contributor to weight gain. It can be 10, 15% of our calories without even thinking about it. So somehow you've got to make a deficit and sustain it with a bit more exercise.
Change your whole diet. I think a lot of the advice out there for people is just completely wrong. We keep hearing this whole thing, 2,500 calories for men, 2,000 women. I'm 57 years old and I'm almost 5'11". If I ate 2,000 calories, I would put weight on.
Yeah.
There's no way I can eat that many calories a day and not put weight on. Doesn't matter how active I am. I can, and I do work out, and I play golf, and I walk a lot, and I would put weight on that many calories. And given that most women are about half a foot shorter than me, I think people are getting completely the wrong advice. Like, to me, I think one of the key things is snacking. This idea that they do this with their kids. Everyone needs to eat every hour and a half. And the other key thing is portion size.
So I think you're right. So the 55 to 64, sorry, you're giving your age away here, Julia.
I've never understand people being ashamed of their age. I really never
is the
understand
age when you get to that maximum weight. In fact, it starts to come off after that age because, unfortunately, illness contributes to that.
Yep.
But I think you're right. I think the public health message in here is huge, particularly when you look at issues like social deprivation, where you see the difference in obesity is about 12% between the areas of the highest deprivation to the lowest. You've got all this food poverty.
Well, no, it's not food poverty. It's comfort eating. My life is rubbish. I've got noisy neighbours. My bloke's walked out, and do you know what? I want to play a chips for dinner. It makes sense. I've got nothing to live for. I'm trying to stay healthy. I'm in my healthy BMI range because I want to live a long, healthy life. I've got a lot to live for.
Yeah. So you're talking about that idea of the nihilistic approach to life and healthcare. I'm living today and not for tomorrow. The problem is, Julia, we just cannot afford this in the health system to have this going from. Imagine now we've got children where we've got a third obese or overweight transcending into adulthood. We cannot afford that in society. Doesn't matter. So I think this has to start right in schools, in childhood, and start to change the messaging to say we cannot tolerate this and it's bad for your children.
Do you think, well, again, I mean, if we saw a parent giving a cigarette or a shot of vodka to their 6-year-old, you'd go, that's outrageous. You're a terrible parent. I see a parent giving their kid, a bar of chocolate or a packet of crisps or a can of Coke on the way to school. I think that's just as bad. I think we should be shaming parents who are being lazy, feckless, bad parents. I don't think we do enough of that. If you want to be overweight, that's fine. I don't believe the NHS should only be for people who eat broccoli for breakfast or whatever. I think people have got a right to do what they want with their own bodies. If you are making your kids fat, I genuinely think we should be naming and shaming you, and if necessary, prosecuting you. If you don't feed your kids enough, you'd be prosecuted. If you feed your kids so much your kids are obese, I think you should also be prosecuted.
So if you look at morbid obesity, that's a BMI of 40 plus. That is equivalent for health outcomes to smoking 20 cigarettes a day. Most people don't recognise that. The problem is that group of people are in the 30s, 40s. And then the issues start to kick in your late 40s and 50s. And by then it's too late. You've done all the damages. You've got diabetes, cardiovascular problems, and huge health issues. So we've got to get those people, and they're the ones who are the target of this treatment. The PMIs over 40. They are in serious health issues.
Over 40. I mean, you're talking about being serious. We're not talking about people who've got a little bit of, might have had a few too many mince pies and sherries over Christmas, people.
Correct, but what we're talking about here is 1 in 40 adults. Everybody, as you walk around the street, will see somebody in that group or will know somebody in that group, and it's on the increase. So we really do have to do something at that very high end.
Well, that's been the argument for these weight loss jabs, which these people are saying, I've not been able to lose weight all these years, and they're having all these problems, diabetes, high risk of cancer, heart disease, and all of that, and getting that weight off them, and then... And, that can be a good start. If it works them, not too many side effects, OK, fair enough. But what should happen then?
Well, look, you talked about the smoking. Think about the public health messaging that we targeted everybody to say this is a bad idea and try to shift their behaviour. It's very difficult.
Well,
this is not going to happen overnight.
And we've started banning people from smoking, and we weren't going to ban fat people from the biscuit aisle in the supermarket. What are we going to do?
Well, look, I can remember a time when people smoked on a plane, in a train, in the pubs, and when you look back in time, you think this is seriously ridiculous. But if you look at certain hidden calories in many of processed foods, you go on board and you're like, geez, this is 2,000 calories. And it doesn't even make you full. So I think, look, this is not a problem that's going to be solved overnight. Drugs are not going to be the solution for as we're seeing, because you're going to put the weight on. It's not going to be a lifelong treatment. But
why can't it be a while? I mean, that's a lot of people are just saying, I'm never going to come off these drugs. I'm going to stay there on them for life.
Because what you're doing then is medicalising the whole of society. That comes
But that's what
with,
the pharmaceutical companies want to do.
oh yeah,
That's why
this is the dream.
they spent years developing statins. They,
Yeah.
they don't want to come up with a cure for cancer. That's not going to make them money. They're going to make money out of putting the entire society on weight loss jabs and statins for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, but remember, statins most benefit those who've already had a heart attack, who have a serious condition and are at high risk of dying in their 50s and
Yeah.
60s. We're not treating 20-year-olds or
Yeah.
10-year-olds with statins. But you're right, we have a huge issue here that we have to start addressing. We're not going to, if we medicalise the whole of society, you're going to have huge numbers of people thinking, well, it's all right, I can eat what I want, I'll just keep taking the drugs. That is complete exploratory. We've only got 2 years of experience with these drugs, yet the number of side effects are accumulating, and the cost is going to be huge. This is not going to come free for the NHS on prescription. So anybody who thinks for this lifestyle choice, what we do is sell us a load of products and then we sell you a load of drugs. Yeah, it's a fantastic for the pharmaceutical industry. This is a $70 billion worldwide market. It's due to increase to about 100 billion by the end of the decade. It is a dream for pharma. It is not a dream for us and the public about how we solve this problem.
Absolutely fascinating. Carl Heneghan, Professor of Evidence-Based Medicine at the University of Oxford. Thank you very much, Steve, for that. Philip Ingram, listening to all that's really interesting. I'm going to say